Let me tell you about this absolutely gorgeous 1973 Chevy K10 I just came across on Craigslist. This is one of those builds that really catches your eye. We're looking at a beautifully executed mashup with a 1987 front clip on a 73 K10 short bed. What makes this truck special is that it underwent a complete frame-off restoration in 2021, so we're talking about essentially a rebuilt classic here. Under the hood, you've got the reliable Chevy 350 paired with an automatic transmission, a combo that's proven itself time and time again. The seller mentions it cruises smoothly at 70 mph, which tells us the drivetrain is dialed in nicely. They've rebuilt the 2.73 axle, and the truck's got fresh rear pads and drums, plus working emergency brakes. That's attention to detail right there. The two-tone silver and maroon paint job really sets this K10 apart, and those painted rally wheels with new rubber complete the look perfectly. Plus, it's got AC, a huge bonus for a truck of this vintage. Now the odometer shows 100k miles but has rolled over, so we're looking at more than that. However, given the recent frame-off restoration, the mileage is less relevant here. At $29,200, you're getting a thoroughly restored classic that's ready to hit the road. The seller seems to have taken great care with the restoration, and the only reason for selling appears to be lack of time to enjoy it. If you're in the market for a clean, well-restored K10, this one's worth checking out. 2. We're looking at a really special find, a 1981 Chevrolet Silverado that's asking $28,000, and let me tell you why this one's worth talking about. This is one of those rare time capsule trucks that makes you do a double take. With just 58,129 miles on the clock, this Silverado has clearly been babied throughout its life. We're looking at an all-original truck powered by the 305 V8. Not the most powerful engine Chevy offered, but these motors are known for their reliability and smooth operation. What really stands out here is the condition. The seller states there's no rust, which is incredibly rare for a 42-year-old truck. That's usually the biggest concern with these classics, so finding one this clean is like striking gold. The AC is still blowing cold, which is another huge plus for a truck of this vintage. The automatic transmission and V8 combination makes this a comfortable cruiser, and with such low miles, you're essentially getting a preserved piece of American truck history. The clean title adds extra peace of mind. At $28,000, while it might seem steep to some, we're seeing prices for well-preserved classics like this continue to rise. For someone looking for an original, unmolested example of an early Silverado, this could be a solid investment. Remember, folks, as always with classics like this, I'd recommend a thorough in-person inspection, but based on the description and the excellent condition reported, this looks like one of those rare survivors that could make someone very happy. These original low-mileage examples don't come up for sale very often. 3. We're checking out a pretty interesting 1983 Chevrolet S10 Durango that's caught my attention, and let me share why. This is an extended cab 4x4 model, which is already a less common configuration for these first-gen S10s. What we've got here is the 2.8-liter V6 paired with an automatic transmission. Not the most powerful setup, but it's a reliable combination that's proven itself over the years. The odometer shows 75,000 miles, which is surprisingly low for a 40-year-old truck. It's sporting a red exterior with gray interior and bucket seats, which was one of the nicer trim packages for these trucks. Now let's talk price. They're asking $14,900, and I've got to be straight with you all. That's pretty ambitious for an 83 S10 even in good condition. While these trucks are starting to gain some collector interest, you'll want to really inspect this one carefully to justify that price point. One thing to note is that this is being sold by a dealer, so there will be additional fees on top of the asking price. That means you're looking at closer to $16,000 out the door, depending on your local taxes and fees. These first-gen S10s are becoming increasingly hard to find in good condition, and the extended cab 4x4 configuration does make this one more desirable. However, make sure to do your homework on values and get a thorough inspection before pulling the trigger at this price point. 4. Let me tell you about this awesome 1985 Chevy C20 I found on Craigslist for $3,800. You know, these old-school workhorses are getting harder to find, especially in this kind of condition. This C20 Custom Deluxe is rocking a classic 350 V8, that's 5.7L for you metric folks, with 129k miles, which honestly isn't much for these tanks. What's really cool is it's got a 3-speed manual with a granny gear, perfect for hauling heavy loads up those steep grades. Speaking of hauling, it's set up with both a fifth wheel and a standard hitch, so it's ready for some serious work. The body is surprisingly clean for a 85. We're talking straight panels, no rust through, which is rare for these old Chevys, and it's wearing a red paint job. Inside, you've got a freshly recovered bench seat and vinyl floor mats. Nothing fancy, just honest working truck stuff. They've done some important maintenance too. New aluminum radiator and starter, which are good peace of mind items. The only issue I can spot is the Eagle liftgate needs a new electric motor for the hydraulic pump, but that's not a deal breaker for most uses. Look, for $3,800, this is a solid deal on a classic work truck. These C20s were built like tanks, and this one seems well maintained. Sure, it's not perfect. It's a 38-year-old truck, but finding one this clean with no major rust issues is getting rare. Whether you need it for construction, farm work, or pulling trailers, this old Chevy's got plenty of life left in it. 5. Let me give you the real scoop on this 1975 GMC 4R4 long bed that's up for grabs at $4,000. I've got to be straight with you. This is definitely a project truck, but there's some serious potential here. Let's address the elephant in the room first. Yes, it's got rust issues. The seller's honest about it. The front fender bottoms are pretty much toast, and there's scattered rust elsewhere. But here's the good news. The crucial stuff like the rockers, floors, drip rails, and bed floor are still solid, which is actually pretty rare for these old trucks. Under the hood, you've got a 400 CI small block Chevy with an Edelbrock carb. It runs and drives. They got it down a mountain onto their trailer. But there's a significant oil leak that needs attention. The truck's got about 100k miles on it, and being a California ranch truck, it's got that authentic working truck history. Here's what makes this interesting. It's a pre-smog 4x4 square body, which is becoming increasingly desirable. The market for these trucks has been going crazy lately, and finding one with a clean California title at this price point is getting rare. Sure, it needs work, probably a good bit of it, but with square body prices through the roof, as the seller mentions, there's definitely room for appreciation here. Would this make a killer LS swap candidate? Absolutely. The bones are there for someone willing to put in the work. At $4,000, you're getting into a project that could be worth significantly more when finished, especially given the current market for these trucks. Just remember, this isn't a hop-in-and-drive-away situation. You're buying a project that needs love, time, and money. But if you're looking for an honest pre-smog 4x4 square body to restore, this could be your ticket in at a reasonable price point. Just make sure you've got a game plan for that oil leak and rust repair before diving in. 6. Let's talk about this 1978 Chevy Blazer Cheyenne that's popped up for $4,900. I've got to be completely honest with you. This is definitely a project car, and you need to know exactly what you're getting into here. First things first, there's no engine. That's right. This Blazer has been sitting for 3 years without a power plant, so you're looking at a significant investment right off the bat. The seller's upfront about it being a project, and they're not kidding. Now here's where things get interesting. This is a Cheyenne trim-level Blazer, which means it came loaded with options. Power steering, power disc brakes, power windows, tilt steering, clock, and AC. The interior is complete, which is actually a big deal for these old Blazers, as interior parts can be hard to find. For a nearly 50-year-old vehicle, the rust situation is surprisingly manageable. Clean floors and rockers, which is often the death knell for these old 4x4s. Yes, there are some small dings and dents, but that's to be expected. The odometer has rolled over, so the actual mileage is unknown, and there's a lien on the title that would need to be sorted out. At $4,900, which the seller says is very negotiable, you're basically buying a rolling shell with potential. These Blazers are becoming increasingly collectible, but you'll need to factor in the cost of an engine, transmission work, and general restoration expenses. If you're handy with a wrench and looking for a classic blazer project with good bones, this could be your canvas. Just remember, you're not driving this home, you'll need a trailer and a solid plan for that missing engine. But hey, for the right person with the right vision and budget, this could be the start of something pretty cool. 7. Let's talk about this 1984 Chevrolet Silverado stepside that's listed for $12,500. I've got to be straight with you. This price needs some serious discussion. We're looking at a classic stepside pickup with the 5.0L V8 engine. That's the 305 for you Chevy folks. The seller says it runs good, which is positive. But let's be real about a few things here. The odometer shows 75,000 miles, but it's rolled over, so the true mileage is unknown. Pretty common for these old trucks. Now here's where I need to be completely honest. $12,500 seems pretty steep for what's being described. The seller openly admits it needs a paint job and some interior trim work. In today's market, while these square-body Chevys are definitely appreciating, this price point usually gets you a truck in better cosmetic condition. The good news is it's got a clean title and that classic step-side bed, which is becoming increasingly desirable. The 305 V8 isn't the most powerful engine Chevy offered, but it's reliable and parts are readily available. Look, if you're interested in this truck, you might want to negotiate that price down, considering the needed paintwork and interior repairs. While these square bodies are climbing in value, you should factor in the cost of the cosmetic work it needs. It could be a solid truck underneath, but make sure you inspect it thoroughly and negotiate accordingly. 8. Let's talk about this 1975 Chevy C10 that's up for $6,700. And I need to be completely honest with you about what we're looking at here. First off, this is technically a K10 that's been converted to 2WD. The front driveline has been removed, which is interesting. It's got a salvage title. Seller claims they don't know why. So that's something you'll need to consider for future resale value and insurance purposes. Let's talk about the condition. This truck needs work, and the seller's pretty upfront about it. It's currently not roadworthy and needs to be trailered home. They've installed a new carburetor and mentioned some goodies under the hood, but it still needs minor stuff to get it up to par, which could mean anything in project car language. The body has some typical square body issues: rust above the passenger rear tire and on the lower cab corner, which is indeed common for these trucks. The paint is flat black and faded, and currently shined up with baby oil for the photos. Yes, you read that right. On the positive side, the floors are solid, which is actually a big deal for these old trucks. At $6,700, you're buying a project that needs immediate attention to get roadworthy. While these square-body Chevys are hot in the market right now, this one's got some hurdles: the salvage title, the 4x4 to 2WD conversion, and the need for mechanical attention. If you're mechanically inclined and looking for a project square body, this could be interesting. Just make sure you negotiate with all these factors in mind. And remember, you'll need a trailer to get it home. 2. 9. Let's check out this 1985 Chevy S10 that's listed for $3,750. You know, these first-gen S10s are getting pretty hard to find, especially in this kind of condition. We're looking at a regular cab, short box model in black, and according to the seller, it's the original color with some touch-ups, which is pretty cool for a truck pushing 40 years old. Under the hood, you've got the V6 paired with an automatic transmission, plus power steering, and a tilt wheel for some added comfort. The odometer shows 152,000 miles, which isn't too bad for these old workhorses. What's really catching my eye here is the body condition. The seller emphasizes it's very nice, which is rare for these S10s, as they were often used and abused as work trucks. The interior is described as clean too, which is another plus since interior parts for these trucks are getting harder to find. At $3,650, you're looking at a pretty fair price for a clean, original square-body S10. These trucks aren't typically collector items, but they're developing a following, and finding one that hasn't been modified or beaten to death is getting increasingly difficult. If you're in the market for a classic small pickup that could be both a daily driver and a budding collector piece, this S10 might be worth checking out. Just remember to do your usual used vehicle checks. These are old trucks after all, even if this one appears well preserved. 10. Let me tell you about this seriously upgraded 1984 Chevy C10 that's up for $11,500. This isn't your average square body. We're looking at a well-thought-out build here. Let's dive into what makes this truck special. Under the hood, you've got a 350 crate motor pushing around 325 horses, breathing through an Edelbrock carb and Headman headers. They've even added an Optima red top battery for reliable starting. But here's where it gets really interesting. The transmission is a 700R4 that's been built to handle up to 500 HP. It's got a shift kit that lets you bang through the gears manually or cruise in automatic, controlled by a B&M Stealth Pro ratchet shifter. The best part? This trans work was done just 3,000 miles ago, and they've got the paperwork to prove it. The rear end's been shown some love too, with an Eaton Posey differential sporting new bearings and seals from about 5,000 miles ago, again with documentation. They've dropped it with a DJM suspension kit front and rear, and it's riding on fresh shocks. At 77,800 miles showing on the odometer, and considering all the performance upgrades, the $11,500 asking price actually makes sense in today's market. These square bodies are hot right now, and finding one with this level of documented performance upgrades is pretty rare. Look, if you're in the market for a square body C10 that's been built to perform, but still be drivable, this one deserves a serious look. The combination of that crate motor, built transmission, and Posey rear end means this truck can really move when you want it to, but still be civilized enough for regular use. Just make sure to check all that documentation and maybe get a test drive to verify everything's working as advertised. 11. Let's talk about this 1972 Chevy El Camino SS that's up for $16,000. I've got to be straight with you about what we're looking at here. First off, this is a genuine SS model, which is definitely a big deal for collectors. The odometer shows 96,000 miles, and while that's not terrible for a 50-year-old vehicle, the real story here is under the hood. It's running a new 350 GM engine paired with a rebuilt turbo 350 transmission with a shift kit, so the powertrain is fresh and ready to roll. Now, let's be honest about the condition. The seller's upfront that this El Camino was restored many years ago, and it's showing its age. Both the paint and interior need some TLC. We're not talking about a show car here, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. This is what I'd call a solid 20-footer that you can actually drive and enjoy while you gradually improve it. At $16,000, you're buying a legitimate El Camino SS with good bones and a fresh powertrain. These car trucks are seriously climbing in value, especially genuine SS models. While it needs cosmetic work, the fact that it runs and drives reliably means you could enjoy it while you save up for paint and interior work. If you're looking for a classic El Camino that you can drive right away and gradually restore to show condition, this could be your ticket. Just remember, you're not buying a perfect car, but rather a solid platform with lots of potential. And hey, with El Camino SS prices continuing to climb, there might be some investment potential here too. 12. Let me tell you about this interesting 1979 K5 Blazer that's listed for $8,400. This one's got a story to tell, and I need to be upfront about what we're looking at here. Let's start with the biggest selling point. Under the hood sits a freshly built 396 big block with only 80 miles on it. And we're not just talking claims here. The seller's got the dyno sheets to prove it's pushing 375 horsepower and 430 ft-lbs of torque. That's some serious muscle. The seller even notes they'd take $6,000 without the engine, which gives you an idea of how much they've invested in that power plant. Now about the body. It's described as real solid, though there is some minor rust in the rear fender wells. But here's the good news. The floors and frame are solid, which is crucial for these old K5s. They've added some nice touches like new front bumper guards, a new grille, new door panels, and it's still got the factory seats. The truck's rolling on brand new tires, which is always a plus. With the odometer showing 100,000 miles, that's pretty typical for these old Blazers, though as always with vehicles this age, take that number with a grain of salt. At $8,400, considering that monster 396 under the hood, with documentation, you're essentially buying a solid K5 with serious power potential. These square-body Blazers are hot in the market right now, and finding one with a fresh big block could be a great starting point for either a restoration or a fun weekend warrior. Just remember, while it might not be the prettiest K5 out there right now, that fresh 396 under the hood means this Blazer's got the muscle to back up its rough and ready looks. If you're looking for a powerful classic 4x4 with potential, this could be your ticket. 13. Let's talk about this 1967 Chevy C20 Custom Camper Special that's listed for $13,500 down in Southern Oregon. This is one of those classic workhorses that's getting harder to find, especially in good condition. What we've got here is a C20, that's the 3/4-ton model, with the desirable Custom Camper Special package. Under the hood, you'll find the 327 V8 paired with an automatic transmission, which is a solid, reliable combination for these trucks. The seller says it runs and drives great, which is always good to hear with a 56-year-old vehicle. The odometer shows 70,000 miles, though as with any vehicle this age, you'll want to take that number with a grain of salt. The truck's wearing black paint, and it's got a clean title, which is always a plus for these classics. At $13,500, you're in the ballpark for a clean 67 C20, especially with the Camper Special package. These trucks have been climbing in value, and the 67-72 body style is particularly sought after. The Custom Camper Special models came with some heavy-duty upgrades from the factory, making them particularly desirable for collectors and enthusiasts. If you're in the market for a classic C20 that you can actually use while it appreciates in value, this one might be worth checking out. Just make sure to give it a thorough inspection. Even well-maintained trucks from this era can have their quirks. 14. Let's talk about this 1964 Chevy C10 that's up for $22,000. These early C10s are seriously hot in the market right now, so let's break down what we're looking at here. Under the hood, you've got a fresh 350 motor and transmission combo, which is always a good starting point for reliability. The truck's sitting on stock suspension front and rear, and they've added some nice touches like a tilt steering wheel and floor shifter. There's fresh chrome work done, new windshield, and it's rolling on some nice wheels and tires. Now, let's be honest about the cosmetics. There are some issues to address. The passenger door needs better alignment, and there are some scratches on the passenger side bed and front fender. The seller mentions they have some Eastwood single-stage Chevy red paint, which suggests some bodywork might be in your future. At $22,000, and they're saying OBO, or best offer, you're in the territory where these early C10s are trading these days, especially with the fresh drivetrain. These 60-66 C10s have become seriously collectible, and good ones are getting harder to find. If you're looking for a classic C10 with a solid foundation and some room for improvement, this could be interesting. The fresh 350 means you've got reliable power, but you'll need to address those cosmetic issues if you want to take it to the next level. Just make sure to inspect that door alignment issue carefully. Sometimes these can be simple fixes, other times they point to bigger structural concerns. Remember, in today's market, finding a solid 64 C10 isn't easy, and with the mechanical work already done, this could be a good platform for creating something special. 15. Let me tell you about this 1969 Chevy C30 that's listed for $10,000. And I need to be completely honest about what we're dealing with here. First off, let's address the elephant in the room. This truck currently has a cracked engine block and needs to be towed away. That's a significant issue right off the bat. However, there's an interesting story here because this truck has received a ton of upgrades that make it worth considering. Let's talk about all the good stuff. It's got an NV4500 5-speed manual transmission, which is a serious upgrade for these trucks. The sellers installed a bunch of performance and comfort parts, including an Edelbrock carb and water pump, new power steering components, a modern Hydro Boost brake system, and even a vintage Air AC system. They've modernized the electrical system with an American auto wire harness and added digital gauges. There's even a custom stereo system with a subwoofer. Now here's the reality check. While all these upgrades are great, you're looking at needing a new short block before this truck moves under its own power. The odometer's broken, so true mileage is unknown, and it's being sold as is. At $10,000, you need to carefully consider what you're getting. On one hand, you're getting a rare C30 with some serious upgrades already done. On the other hand, you're facing an immediate engine replacement before you can even drive it. The good news is that many new parts are included for when you do the engine swap. If you're mechanically inclined and looking for a project with potential, this could be interesting. Just make sure you factor in the cost of a new engine and installation into your budget. This isn't a drive-home situation, but with all those upgrades, it could be a really cool truck once you sort out the engine issue. 16. Let me tell you about this 1979 Chevy C30 dually that's listed for $6,000, and I need to be straight with you about what we're looking at here. This is a classic square-body dually with a big block engine, which is always an interesting starting point. The seller mentions it has some aftermarket parts, though they don't specify what those are. However, and this is important, the truck currently needs a fuel pump and isn't running. That's a pretty significant detail that needs to be factored into your decision-making. While fuel pump replacement isn't typically a massive job on these trucks, you'll need to factor in that repair cost and the fact that you can't test drive it before purchase. You'll need to trailer it home. The good news is it does come with a clean title, which is always a plus for vehicles of this age. At $6,000, you're buying a project that needs immediate attention. These C30 dualis are getting harder to find, especially with big block power. But the price seems a bit steep for a non-running truck with such a brief description. We don't know the mileage, condition of the body, or state of the interior. If you're interested in this truck, you'll definitely want to get more information about those aftermarket parts and the overall condition. And remember, while a fuel pump might be the only issue mentioned, with any non-running vehicle, there could be other surprises waiting once you get it running again. Make sure to factor all this into your negotiations. 17. Let's talk about this 1984 Ford Ranger that's up for grabs at $2,000. This is one of those basic, no-frills work trucks from the first generation of Rangers, and there's something pretty cool about that. We're looking at a 4-cylinder model with a 5-speed manual transmission, a simple, reliable combination that these early Rangers were known for. The odometer shows 1,542 miles, but it's rolled over, so true mileage is unknown. TMU. The sellers kept it pretty straightforward here. They've installed a new carburetor, and they mention it's not leaking, which is always good news for an older vehicle. One big plus here is that it's already smogged and registered until 2026, which means you won't have to deal with that hassle for a while. It's wearing blue paint and comes with a clean title. At $2,000, you're looking at a pretty fair price for a running, driving first-gen Ranger, especially one that's already passed emissions. These trucks aren't typically collector items, but they're getting harder to find in running condition, and they make great basic transportation or work trucks. If you're in the market for a simple manual transmission pickup that's easy to work on and cheap to maintain, this could be worth checking out. Just remember, it's a nearly 40-year-old truck, so expect some typical old vehicle quirks. 18. Let me tell you about this seriously clean 1965 Chevy C20 that's listed for $24,000. This isn't your average old truck. There's some real history and quality work here that deserves attention. First off, this truck was restored back in 1985 by the owner's uncle, who was a metal worker. And here's what makes that important. No Bondo was used, just proper metalwork. The truck was completely stripped down and properly restored, and since then, it's barely seen rain or even a car wash. That's the kind of care that makes a difference in these old trucks. Under the hood, there's a seriously built 350 from a 72 C10. We're talking a 4-bolt main block board .030 over, comp cam, double roller timing chain, ARP head studs, and Summit 202 heads. This isn't just some thrown-together engine. It's been properly built with quality parts, and it's only got about 5,000 miles on it. It's still got its original 4-speed transmission too, which is pretty rare to find these days. They've made some smart upgrades. AC was added 2 years ago, and it works. And it's got new tires, brakes, grille, radiator, front bumper, and exhaust system. They've given it a subtle 2/4-inch drop with C10 springs for a better stance. The owner's even proven its reliability with multiple Phoenix road trips in 105-degree heat. At $24,000, yes, it's serious money, but you're getting what appears to be one of the cleanest 65 C20s out there. The combination of proper metal restoration, documented history, quality mechanical upgrades, and careful maintenance makes this a standout example. These early C20s are getting harder to find, especially ones with this level of care and documentation. 19. Let me tell you about this 1965 Chevy C10 that's listed at $29,990, and I need to be completely honest about what we're looking at here. First off, let's address that odometer reading of 5,924 miles. On a 58-year-old truck, this is almost certainly after at least one rollover, maybe more. It's important to be realistic about that. The listing is from a dealer, Southwest Car Sales, and while the truck looks clean in red with a tan interior, that price point needs some serious discussion. At nearly $30,000, this is sitting at the higher end of the market for these trucks. While C10s from this era are definitely appreciating and becoming more collectible, this price point usually gets you a thoroughly restored example with documented history and upgrades. The dealer's description is pretty light on details. We don't know what engine it's running, what condition the undercarriage is in, or whether it's had any restoration work. They're marketing it as a classic that won't break the bank, but at this price point, that's debatable. Look, these 65 C10s are fantastic trucks, and this one appears to be clean from what we can see. But if you're seriously interested, you'll want to get a lot more information about its history, any restoration work, and mechanical condition. At nearly $30K, you should be getting a very well-sorted truck with documentation to back it up. Remember, when dealing with dealer listings, especially for classics, it's crucial to do your homework and get a thorough inspection. And don't be afraid to negotiate. That price seems ambitious without more detailed information about the truck's condition and history. 20. Let me tell you about this amazing 1972 Chevy Suburban C10 that's catching eyes on Craigslist. This is seriously one of those rare finds that makes vintage SUV lovers' hearts skip a beat. What we're looking at is a true California survivor, and I mean that in the best possible way. We're talking about a two-owner Suburban in Cheyenne blue that's been soaking up that California sun since day one. The fact that it's got 122,000 original miles with documented history and still rocking its original California blue plates, that's gold in the classic car world. The seller's really done their homework with the maintenance too. They've dropped over $4,500 into recent services. We're talking a rebuilt carb, fresh tires, new brakes, shocks, fuel system overhaul, and even a new starter and battery. That's the kind of investment that shows this isn't just a pretty face, it's ready to roll. Speaking of looks, this Suburban got a respray about 8 years ago in its original Cheyenne blue, and all the trim pieces, chrome, lights, and interior components are claimed to be original. That's increasingly rare for a vehicle of this vintage. The undercarriage is described as solid with no rust issues, which is a huge plus for a 50-plus-year-old vehicle. Under the hood, you've got the numbers-matching 350 V8 paired with the original automatic transmission. The seller's confidence in the vehicle is backed up by their recent 100-mile round trip from Concord to San Francisco. That's not something you do in a questionable classic. At $21,000, considering the current market for well-maintained classics, especially California-kept Suburbans with documented history and recent mechanical work, this price point seems to be in the ballpark for a clean example like this. The fact that it's turnkey ready and comes with its original title and plates adds real value for collectors.